I remember, visions of a little boy, a blonde-haired, blue-eyed boy. I remember talking to him as this kid and getting in the back of the car and coming home with him and stuff.
When he was playing in his room or anything, you could hear him talking to man.
When everybody was asking, where'd he come from? Where'd he come from? And then I remember just spitting it out where he came from. He said he came from a box in the ground at that park.
He was brought home from a cemetery.
Something about there was a bad man that did bad stuff to him. I remember sitting in the hallways playing with my toys, and it seems like I had an old briefcase or something. I was digging through it and I found that picture out of nowhere.
He said, "That is man." That's when it kind of got spooky, I think. We had a cat, a kitten.
I remember trying to smother one under a couch cushion.
Western Kentucky has been shrouded in mystery and folklore for decades, with stories being passed down through generations. Many believe evil spirits have inhabited this land for centuries. Lurking in the shadows, waiting for another soul to cross its path. Jan and Jim Thompson know of every highway, street, and back road around Paducah, Kentucky. Jim works as a contract driver for the United States Postal Service, while Jan also works full-time as a driver for FedEx. They work hard to provide a good life for their two children, 4-year-old Josh and 16-year-old Ashley. Jan hired a nanny to stay at the house and take care of Josh during the day while she and Jim were at work. There weren't a lot of children in the area Josh's age, so the nanny would take him to various playgrounds and parks to give him the opportunity to interact with other children his age whenever possible. The nanny, Susie, began to notice Josh had an invisible friend that would always accompany them on their outings, as he would carry on conversations with him in the car and while playing in the park.
I remember that park. I remember that area, and I remember playing there as a kid. I remember, visions of a little boy, a blonde-haired, blue-eyed boy. I remember talking to him as this kid and getting in the back of the car and coming home with him and stuff.
It's not exactly uncommon for a child Josh's age to have an imaginary friend. So his parents didn't question or raise an eyebrow when he began speaking to a friend only he could see and talk to, a friend he called Man.
When he was playing in his room or anything, you could hear him talking to Man. And then you say, well, what are you doing? And he'd say, well, I'm playing with Man.
No, I just remember him sitting there, a little boy sitting Indian style, looking at me.
It wasn't long after this discovery when unexplainable activity began happening in their home. This included very strange noises in the attic, the sense of someone staring at you in the shower, the sound of someone raking their fingernails along the wall in the hallway at night, and beds shaking slightly but enough to awaken you from your sleep.
I guess that's when we kind of realized that, something was going on.
Josh's attraction to his imaginary playmate grew by the day, but his attitude and behavior would take a turn for the worse when he started doing things out of character and then would blame it on his friend Man.
He would do stuff and say, well, Man told me to do that. And so that's when I really started noticing different things.
Josh became very defiant towards his parents, not doing anything they tell him to, and began using bad language.
That period of time was almost like I was just a shell. I don't know how to describe it.
After realizing that Josh's invisible friend was much more than just an imaginary playmate, they decided to question him further about his friend he called Man.
I remember the little boy saying, when everybody was asking, where'd he come from? Where'd he come from? And then I remember just spitting it out where he came from. He said it came from a box in the ground at that park. A little tiny box in the ground. He's buried over there with a family member, as I can recall.
He told them that Man was 6 years old and that he had blonde hair and brown eyes. When Jan asked Josh if Man was dead, he replied yes.
He wasn't old enough to realize to tell us that he came from like the beast in the graveyard or something like that.
Josh went on to tell his parents that a stranger had taken Man away from his mother and did terrible things to him. He cried and screamed for his mom, but she could never find him.
Something about there was a bad man that did bad stuff to him, and that's about all I can. That's about all I can recall. Like I said, it was just when they would ask, I would spit it out. It's like it's like I was on autopilot or something. It was very strange.
Josh's nanny recalled a small, old cemetery in the vicinity of the park she would usually take him to.
Miss Dottie would take him to the park and stuff, so it could have been that it came from, that graveyard.
I remember the old gravestones. Cause I've seen gravestones like that now, but there were the old tan or old dark brown faded. It was real old cemetery that used to be there, and that's where he came from.
Willing to try anything to get their son back to normal, Jan appoints the help of family friend and medicine man, Eli Little Bear.
Jan had a full-blooded Indian. His name was Little Bear, and she talked to him about it.
The medicine man instructed Jan to burn sage with sweetgrass and direct it around the four corners of the property. She also must anoint each entrance of the house with olive oil.
She had to go through and bless the house and everything.
It was a blessing with, what is it, a hyssop or something like that they burn.
She done it with olive oil and then went back through with the sage, or vice versa.
She went into every room with it. It never did burn, it just smoked. He told her that was to ward off evil spirits.
The Thompson family believed this ordeal was over when the paranormal activity completely stopped for several months after the cleansing. It was an ordinary day when Jan was at home folding laundry while watching Josh. Her heart sunk when she suddenly started to hear Josh talking to Man. As she approached him, she noticed that Josh was holding on to something, which happened to be an old photo.
I remember sitting in the hallways playing with my toys, and it seems like I had an old briefcase or something I was pilfering through. It seemed like I had something like that in front of me, and then, I was digging through it, and I found that picture out of nowhere.
The photo appeared to be from the early to mid-1900s, featuring an older woman sitting in a chair with a smaller boy sitting on the floor next to her. When Jan asked Josh where he had gotten the picture, he told her that Man had given it to him.
I just remember sitting there pilfering, finding the photo and handing it to Mom, her asking where'd you get this? Well, I guess Man gave it to me, and I just found it, She was just confused, was trying to identify who was in the picture and stuff.
He had the photograph in his room, and when we asked him who it was, he said, "That's Man." And so that's when it kind of got kind of spooky, I think.
It was an older picture. I do remember the lady in it, wearing an old-timey dress, something you didn't see for that period where we were living.
Jan put the photo on the refrigerator, hoping that any of her family and friends that stop over will be able to identify the people in the picture.
Nobody here, none of my family had ever seen this picture. It just appeared. It seemed to me like it was on the refrigerator, and one day it just disappeared.
I never saw it and never saw it again.
The family looked everywhere trying to find the photo, but had no luck.
We tried to find it, and nowhere to be found.
When asking Josh what happened to it, he told them that Man had taken it away. During this time, Josh's nanny had moved away, leaving Jim and Jan without a sitter to watch him while they're at work.
After Dottie quit, his regular sitter, my sister-in-law at the time said she would watch him, watch Josh, and she had a little girl.
It wasn't long before strange things also started to occur here as well. Jim's sister-in-law claimed to have heard a deep, dark voice coming from the playroom while Josh was over their house playing with her daughter.
It got so spooky that she wouldn't watch him no more. She was very religious too.
The final straw would come less than 2 months after she started watching him. She went to go check on her daughter and Josh. As she opened the door, she saw several toys floating in the air before instantly dropping to the ground. She immediately called Jan to tell her what happened and to have her come pick Josh up.
When I was over at Missy's house and stuff, playing with a cousin, he was with me. I don't recall the being in the moment, the toys floating and stuff. Like I don't know. Like I said, there's bits and pieces I can remember, and then it's like I was just on autopilot. It was a shell or something. I don't know. I can't really explain it.
Josh's parents had to start taking him to a daycare and made him promise that he wouldn't take Man with him. He would keep his promise. But when he got home, Man was waiting for him. Over the next few days, Josh's behavior would quickly spiral out of control. When Jim went to Josh's room to tell him dinner was ready, he was shocked to see his son cutting up his stuffed animals.
He just started doing things out of the ordinary and blaming it on Man. Well, Man told me to do this, or Man told me to do that.
Every time Josh did something out of character, he would tell his parents that Man said it was okay, or Man said it would be fun. The next night, Josh's behavior would reach an all-time low.
I guess one of the main things was the deal with the cat. We had a cat, a kitten.
I remember trying to smother one under a couch cushion. My sister come in and caught me. Part of me didn't understand. Another part of me was really aggressive about the whole situation. But I just that one instance that I can recall.
Do you think that was inspired by Man? Like he told you to do that?
Oh yeah, definitely. Definitely. That was out of character for me. I love animals. I've always loved animals. There was, a matter of fact, there was an instance before then where we were out in the yard and planting flowers. I was helping the mom plant flowers. I was probably like 3 or something. We had kittens, and she had taught me, you plant a tree, it grows, and you get, we get more trees, seed spread and whatnot. And I was out there trying to plant kittens. I wanted more kittens.
Later that same night, after his bed started severely shaking, Josh got up to go sleep in his parents' room. Jan waited for Josh to fall asleep. She wanted to know what her son had been going through. She wanted to feel what he felt, and she finally decided she was going to confront whatever this entity was. It wasn't long until she was awakened by the sound of footsteps in the hallway and saw a shadow of who she thought was Josh standing outside the bedroom door. She called Josh's name and stretched out her arms for him to come over to her.
When the reality hit me was when one night, the best I can remember, she went in Josh's room to get in the bed, and she thought Josh was in there. And so the way she described it, it wasn't Josh. She told that it was man that was in the bed instead of Josh.
Her description of him is a see-through, with the veins were electrical pulsed. They had the glowing eyes, and it was just demonic face laughing in her face.
The figure of this demonic entity would instantly vanish as Jan heard someone turn on the overhead light. It was her daughter Ashley and husband Jim who came to check on her after they heard screaming.
I guess the turning point would have been that night that he manifested, in front of Mom.
A dark realization came over Jan of what man truly was. The thought of what could happen next terrified Jan. She knew she needed to seek help fast if she wanted to protect Josh and her family from this demonic entity. The next day, Jan calls Eli Little Bear, telling him that her family is battling the spirit of a demon. She also tells him about her experience the night before, explaining that this entity has been pretending to be a little boy, but in reality is something much darker and more powerful than they could have ever imagined. Jan asks him if there is anything else he could do to help get rid of this evil energy. The shaman explains that she will have to bless the house again, but this time she must focus on ridding the home of an evil spirit. The shaman tells Jan she will have to be very forceful with her prayers. The cleansing ceremony consisted of an evening fast, along with prayers. Sage and sweet grass were burned together in a small container inside the home, as well as outside with a medicine feather directing the smoke to the 4 directions. Pure olive oil was poured on the 4 corners of the property. Along the driveway, walkway, and each door and window were anointed with the same oil. The ceremony was concluded with the words, "In the name of the Great Spirit, our Creator, our Lord, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen." The sage and sweetgrass were left burning into the night.
Come home from school or whatever. I guess it was, if she blessed the house or whatever. It seems like I would, be looking for him or something, but it was odd. It was just come home one day. It was just an afterthought, like it never happened. I guess he's gone, whatever, I just didn't see him anymore.
In January of 2003, Jan Thompson finally decided to share her family's experience on a now-defunct paranormal forum called Guardian Tales. In 2005, the story would garner the attention of Discovery Channel, who at the time were looking for material to use in their upcoming second season of A Haunting. Several over-the-phone interviews were conducted with the Thompson family before it was even considered being turned into an episode. New Dominion Pictures ultimately decided to feature the story, and shortly after would send a film crew out to Kentucky to film the interviews.
And of course, back then, I was still in school and stuff, so she wanted to change our last names and stuff for privacy reasons.
The interviews were filmed in anonymity for privacy of the family, with their last name being changed to Foster. Jim's name was changed to Dale, and Josh's name was switched to Cody, while Jan's name stayed the same.
Yeah, well, they had the kitchen all taped off with the black drops and stuff, and they interviewed shadow interviews in the kitchen there.
The episode titled Demon Child was the first episode of the second season and would premiere on July 20th, 2006.
She said they nailed it pretty good on the Discovery special there, the way she described him. It gave her chills when she'd watch it. She never actually described him to me back then. Her details of how she described him when she wrote her story and told Discovery and stuff, that was the first I had heard of it, of detailed manifestation.
Demon Child was named one of the 11 most watched A Haunting episodes in an article from Travel Channel in 2021.
I've had friends and stuff. One of my friend's dad's, he really enjoys it. He used to rib me about it all the time. He's like, "Man's gonna come get you again." Yeah, they did a good job with it.
After years of being intrigued by the unknown and the paranormal, Jan would join a ghost hunting group in the early 2000s that went by TRAPS. As her son Josh got older, he would sometimes accompany his mom on her ghost hunts and realized that his mother had very strong clairvoyant abilities.
I know she did for sure. Me, on the other hand, I hadn't really tapped into it. I might get a feeling here and there if we were ever out doing paranormal investigations and stuff. It's nothing more than that. But on her end, she would actually see and hear things, in real time. She had insomnia real bad. It was one of the things she had to deal with, but it wasn't necessarily because of a sleep disorder. It was because she could hear things.
Throughout the 2000s, Jan Thompson would write and post her personal experiences on the website Guardian Tales. In 2007, she would even write in detail of what the process was like being on the show A Haunting. She had a lot of good things to say about the show. However, she revealed that although they filmed an interview with her son Josh for the TV special, they didn't end up including any of it in the final episode.